finals as the Warriors lead the Celtics 3-2. The Dubs took the decisive lead in the Bay, but the series has shifted back to Boston. Will the Warriors win it all again, or will the Celtics extend the series and force a Game 7? Jason Tatum is averaging 23, 8, and 7 in the series and is the youngest player in NBA history to score 600 points in a postseason. He aims to lead the C's to a leading 18th franchise championship. Meanwhile, Steph Curry has recorded the highest scoring average of his finals career.
All right.
This, a 6th shot at a title in the last 8 seasons, and a win would mean a 4th ring for him. Hey everybody, welcome into the TD Garden. Game Time at the Finals is brought to you by YouTube TV. I'm Kristen Ledlow, surrounded by my favorites, Grant Hill, Steve Smith, Isaiah Thomas.
But we know who your real favorite is.
Yes.
I mean, come on now.
It's inside stuff for you. Inside stuff.
Yeah.
Like old times?
Yeah.
How do we do
Don't
it?
stop.
Okay. Y'all forgot it. You forgot it.
We needed to discuss this before we took it to air.
I'm sorry.
Our Jared Greenberg is covering the series from the sidelines. He's going to join us soon. First, though, let's look at this. A year or so ago, Steph Curry said he had a lot left to accomplish, but nothing left to prove. This is his resume, and it is extensive. Grant, I'll start with you. What would a 4th title mean for him, won this way this season?
Well, I mean, I think there'd be a greater appreciation for what he's done. I mean, obviously, those numbers, that resume, impressive, Hall of Fame conversation is one of the top guards in the game. You have to mention that. But the fact that they went through some adversity, that a lot of people thought that they were out of it, that their run was over, and the fact that this team came back, a lot of new faces. You had to insert a guy who hadn't played in a few years. And this team, I think, overall is probably the least talented finals team that this Golden State team has had during this era. So I think it just solidifies him as one of the greats up there with Isaiah and Magic as top point guards that really ever played a game.
And Zeke, he has dropped at least 30 in 13 finals games over the course of his career. Do you think we see the same tonight?
I think he definitely is going to try to, and he's going to need to, in this building. The last game he didn't shoot well at home, and they were able to overcome. But out on the road, they're going to need a stellar performance for him to win this basketball game tonight. I think the Celtics will come out determined. I think they'll play hard. But if Curry does what he did the last time in this building, and we were witnessing it, I mean, he put on a show here, and I'm sure he's coming back to put on another show.
But last game, Smitty, he failed to hit a 3 for the first time since 2018. It had been a while. But if we look at his numbers in games 1 through 4 in comparison, what was it about game 5 that still allowed his team to be effective and to win one in the Bay?
I think Andrew Wiggins was huge. I think also Steve Kerr adjustment of going small gave them more opening where they can drive. And I think conversely, they got a chance to score a lot of points in the paint because the paint wasn't clogged up with Draymond and Looney. Now, if you're the Boston Celtics, and I think it negates Robert Williams. He didn't have any blocked shots, and so he can't man the paint, and he's guarding somebody outside the paint. So adjustments, and I think both coaches are going at each other. They're either trapping the pick and roll with Steph. They're running drop. Either way, I think they're throwing things at each other. And I think the legacy of Steph Curry, I mean, all the great players, they just want to be greedy. And I think Steph is trying to be very greedy. And we're not saying he's done, but when you start getting 34, that window you start to look at it, even though I think he still has a lot left. He wants to get greedy in the last 4 or 5 years.
That makes me feel a little better since he and I are the same age.
Yeah, there you
he's
go.
a veteran now.
Yeah.
I can accept that.
Yeah.
But not old.
You're not a veteran. You're still just a rook.
Again, though, Zeke, he was limited from beyond the arc. What is it the Celtics did defensively that worked well?
I thought what the Celtics did is they got up into him, and a lot of times they were sending him left. And when they sent him left, they were able to come up with the bigs to not only distract, but also to possibly block. Again, we see here, you got 2 bigs, and then he's going left, so you get the shot block from behind. Steph likes to find that pocket on the screen and roll, and Boston did a good job taking away that shooting pocket. They didn't give him space, and then a lot of these shots, he just missed. Like that one rimmed in and out, and we're used to seeing him make those shots. In the fast break situation, they got back quickly in transition. And not only when he went right, he had two people always in his face. When he was running baseline, they would switch out. Not only would they switch out, but they would take away his running lane. When you take away his running lane, now he's not used to that. He can't come off and curve. He definitely just, he ran Horford over. So I look at, Boston trying to replicate what they did. But this is Steph Curry. He'll figure it out.
Right. Given we are talking about the greatest shooter the game has ever seen. But, Grant, what did you do to shake a slump when shots weren't falling?
Well, first of all, I didn't shoot like him. I didn't shoot close. I mean, my thing was I was shooting a little close to the basket.
Yeah.
But, look, give Boston credit. They did a good job. They, as Isaiah said, they made life difficult for him. He couldn't get to where he wanted to go. They made him feel. They got in his space. One thing that Boston has done either a good job of or Steph hasn't taken advantage of is getting into the paint. He's really done a lot of his damage on the perimeter, and he's played well up until Game 5. But I wonder now, great players make adjustments, get to the line, try to get into the paint. If you can't get to the rim to score, maybe find your teammates. But most of what he's done this series has been out on the perimeter, and I don't know if that's because he's had success or the defense interior-wise for Boston has been really good. But maybe mix it up a little bit, get them on their heels, attack. Easier said than done because Boston has some elite perimeter defenders.
Are you concerned at all, not about Steph, but about the Celtics in a closeout opportunity for a frustrated Steph?
You can't at this point. I mean, you got to understand that he has a chance. He can go off. He's been going off his entire series. I think for them, Boston is more on what they need to do versus just concentrate on Steph. I think the one thing they have on their side is Grant and Isaiah. You all know you're an athlete too. This is desperation. I don't ever want to play somebody when they're desperate.
Yeah.
So I want to see how they play desperate, and they have this opportunity. They've done well in elimination games before, especially Jason Tatum. So I want to see the desperation. They just can't turn it over. They don't turn it over, they give themselves a chance because of what Grant and Isaiah talked about. Defensively, they're pretty good when they don't turn it over.
And we're back in Boston after this break as Jason Tatum and the Celtics look to extend this final series at home, aiming for an 18th franchise title. But a closeout opportunity as the Warriors lead 3-2. Stay with us. Game Time at the Finals is brought to you by YouTube TV. We're back in Boston as the Celtics look to extend this final series to 7, but if they are to do so, protecting each possession has proven crucial. The team is just 1-7 this postseason when they commit 16 turnovers or more, averaging a 16% turnover rate in the finals alone. Zeke, what's the key to limiting these turnovers to fewer than 15?
Well, I look at the Celtics and I say what they're concentrating on is dribble penetration. And what that means is they want to get the ball to the front of the rim with some of their elite players. However, they're trying to have dribble penetration playing against smaller, quicker people. And therefore, those smaller, quicker people have an advantage. I think what the Celtics have to do, since they want to get the ball to the front of the rim, is go back to the old-fashioned way. How do you get the basketball to the front of the rim? You pass it into the post, and when you pass it into the post, again, when the ball goes to the front of the rim, that makes the defense react. So as opposed to trying to dribble into the paint, how about just post someone and pass it into the paint? That would be a lot safer. That would be a lot riskier because you're trying to get to the front of the rim with Tatum and Brown. So my old coach used to say, wherever you want to get to, how about I just start you there? And then I'll throw you the ball wherever you want to be. And that'll eliminate a lot of the turnovers.
Let's look at some of the numbers, G, in those fourth quarter stretches, because the Warriors have outscored the Celtics in the fourth quarter in the last 2 games. But prior to Game 4, the C's were plus 40 in those stretches. What went wrong for them in the fourth quarter in Game 5?
Well, first of all, Isaiah, when he talks about a coach, you know he was a Hall of Fame coach. I think he had all Hall of Fame coaches in
Yeah.
high school all the way through. So I hear what you're saying. I agree with you, Isaiah. But, yeah, look, the offensive execution, particularly in the second half and in the fourth quarter, so critical. Boston in Game 5 had a great third quarter, but they couldn't close the deal. Not making the right read as that defense, as Isaiah talked about, went small, making good decisions, not turning the ball over, and getting good shots, of course, on the offensive end, but a lot of turnovers, as you see right here. Give credit, Golden State taking the challenge. Great one-on-one defense right here. You kind of a bailout shot in that situation. You don't have a rhythm going. Of course, that air ball. And then right here, show the wall. 3-4 bodies, but then able to just help each other out, forcing bad shots on the offensive end. I think for them, for Boston, in particular Tatum, he's playing sort of as a primary ball handler, a facilitator. I do think he needs to be aggressive tonight to set the tone, needs to have a signature night, but he needs to value the basketball. The team overall needs to value the basketball, and they need to be efficient on the offensive end. The turnovers and the lack of efficiency led to that meltdown there in the fourth quarter of Game 5.
I'm glad you brought him up, Smitty. Tatum has struggled in fourth quarters. He's averaging just 3 of his 23 points a game in those final 12 minutes. What is it that his team needs from him to avoid elimination?
I'm going to piggyback off Isaiah and Grant Hill. Isaiah said it best. If you're going up against a smaller guy, that's their advantage. If I'm the coaching staff, if you can't make your move in 4 dribbles, you got to get off of it. And if I'm Jason Tatum, I'm going to look at Grant Hill. I played against him. It was 2 dribbles to the rim. And what I mean by that, it was not a lot of wasted movement. And Grant could do it against smalls, against bigs, against wings. But if you're Jason Tatum, then he can come and become Smitty. You can be real slow. You can be real old. But if I get anybody that's smaller than me, I'm really going to try to take 2 dribbles.
You mean
just
now,
to
not then.
Then. Yeah, okay.
And Smitty, you've been very generous.
But I'm saying, I'm
4
going to-
dribbles.
Yes.
You should be able to do it in 2, right?
You should. But that, like right now,
4 is a lot.
but they go 11 right now. They got to give them a little grace. I'm with you. It should be 2.
It takes 4 dribbles now just to warm up for a
Yeah,
lot of
you
these
know,
young
you
guys.
got to get it through like this. Then you can go. That's what they're doing.
okay.
For me, it was 1 dribble and then pump fake. But I think he has to catch the basketball below the 3-point line at times, and it has to be 1 or 2, 3, not 9 dribbles
Yeah.
get to the bucket.
How about Jaylen Brown? His numbers are better at home in this series. What are your expectations for him?
I think the Celtics are very confident. I think Jaylen Brown's very confident. And I think they understand why and how they lost the game. We all pointed it out. They've lost the game by turning the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, they feel like they're a better team. I think the Warriors tonight are facing a confident Celtic team, and I think they're facing a confident Jaylen Brown. Now, you can be confident and still play bad, but I think what we're going to get from the Celtics tonight, I do think that Jaylen Brown and the rest of the team will play well, and I don't think they will throw the ball away as much as they threw it away the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And to your point, Isaiah, look, at home, this crowd feeding off the energy. They lost Game 2, came back here Game 3, and took care of the basketball. They dominated in the paint. They had great bench production. They shot threes well. It was a different team than what we saw in Game 2 out in Oakland, or excuse me, in San Francisco. I think they'll come out and play with that force and that toughness and that physicality and just be efficient. You know, it's simple. You just got to value the basketball. You don't have to try to make the home run play. You know, as Smitty said, like with the Tatum, if he catches the ball at the elbow, he takes 1 dribble. You can't defend that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think if they can, I think they know what they need to do, and I think it's easier to do that when you're at home. They've been in this situation. They were in this situation against Milwaukee, down 3-2. They had to go to Milwaukee against the defending champions. They won that game. They got down in the series early against Miami. So this team, although they don't have the finals experience, there's a grit and a toughness, and there's some substance to this team. And so I'm not saying they'll win tonight, but I believe that they will play better and play deserving enough to win.
And rounding out the Celtics' big 3, Marcus Smart proving key to the Celtics' wins. This series, our Jared Greenberg sat down with him ahead of Game 6, and that's coming up next. Here's a peek.
You've got the two focal points on your team that are 24, 23 years old. They're not very outspoken guys. Is it on your shoulders to be that emotional, vocal leader?
Yeah, that's me. It's who I've always been for those guys, for this team. But at the same time, you know, we're encouraging those guys.
Zeke, as someone who has handled the ball in the NBA Finals a time or two, what is it that makes the Celtics so much better when Marcus Smart is at his best?
I mean, he's the heart and soul of their team, defensively. And what he does is he has to orchestrate out on the floor. And when he orchestrates properly out on the floor, getting people in the right position, making sure the ball goes where it needs to go, and then knocking down those timely big shots that he's capable of making, that's when he's at his best. However, what he has to seriously concentrate on and stay focused on is being the best defender out on the floor, because he's got a big job, and his job is to stay in Steph Curry. I wasn't going to say the last part. to keep Steph Curry, like, you know, from the three-point line. They shut him down, you know, last game. But I just think, like, his job defensively, that's the most important thing that he's bringing to the table.
Smitty, Grant, do you see Smart along with Al Horford as the keys to extending the series?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're the guys that's going to do the dirty work, like they said. I would say, I would just add one thing is, I would love at a time to see Marcus Smart and Derek White playing together, or Marcus Smart and Pritchard playing a little bit more, especially because the Warriors are going small ball. Give them some more two guys that can attack, and what we talked about getting to that paint, what Grant talked about Steph getting into that paint.
Yeah, look, I think it's a total team effort here for them to win here Game 6 at home and extend this series. Marcus Smart, the bench, Derek White, Al Horford. We saw that in Game 1 where they went on the road. They played big. Obviously, it's been a chess match. You know, Steve Kerr made some adjustments, but I think the others tend to play better, tend to have more confidence at home. I expect Al Horford, I expect Derek White and Marcus Smart to step up. And it's not always about scoring. It's just having an impact on the game. But Marcus Smart, no question, he's the heart and soul. He's kind of like the Draymond Green of the Boston Celtics. You know, he brings a toughness. He's that voice in the huddles when things need to be said. There's a respect that he brings to the table. There's a grit and a toughness. And so they feed off of him. I think and you saw the numbers. They play better when he scores and he's more aggressive. So I expect him to have a better game here tonight.
That's each of your expectations. Zeke, what do you think? Al Horford is making a finals debut after 15 seasons. What do you expect to see from him?
I think he'll play well tonight. I think they'll post him closer to the basket. I think they'll allow him to use his strength and his girth around the basket. And if they do that, I expect him to get a couple of people in foul trouble, move them off the floor. But I'm going to throw a wild card out here. I think at home, I wouldn't be surprised if Ime tried, you know, Pritchard. I think Pritchard can give them a little bit of steadiness out there on the floor at the guard position. I think he can knock down shots, and he does play well at home. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him come into the game and have some big moments tonight.
For me, Kristen, this is what Grant talked about, impact. Grant Williams has to have an impact. Grant said it best. Doesn't have to be scoring. He hasn't had an impact in this series, Isaiah, and we're not expecting him to be a 20-point scorer like he hit all the threes against Milwaukee, but
he hit a lot of them.
I got to see you on the offensive glass. I got to see you mixing it up. I have to see that. I got to feel Grant Williams in Game 6 for the Celtics to win this one.
And just to piggyback even further, I think overall the reserves have to be better. You know, the Celtics were outscored 31-4, not counting garbage time in Game 5. You cannot have that. So the Grant Williams, to Smitty's point, the other guys, Pritchard, if they get in the game, they have to be productive. And here's the thing. Look, if Golden State goes small and Boston chooses to go big, then you must dominate them on the glass.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, Golden State has to get the ball up on the glass Boston has to get the ball up on the glass on the offensive end. They can't turn the ball over. But if they're going to go little, either post up a Al Horford or some of those guys, or put it up there and go dominate the offensive glass, make Golden State make adjustments, because you're dominating on the interior, on the glass, and points in the paint.
The Warriors lead this finals. You can add whatever you'd like to add.
I was going to say two things, you know, for our audience, right? Everyone is talking about Tatum and Brown, but the three of us didn't even mention Tatum and Brown, understanding the importance of how well, you know, their teammates have to play so it won't be so much pressure on Tatum and Brown. Now, either Green that walked out behind me,
No, I was
or
going to let
it's
you
Steph
guess.
Curry.
Okay, hang on,
No,
because you get booed in this building as well, Zeke, and it's a
get
new.
booed?
Hang on.
Is it Lambeer?
No, it's a new face. It's a new face getting booed. He's earned his boos.
Is it Joe
Andrew
Dumars?
Wiggins.
Oh, Wiggins. Oh, congratulations. That is a sign of
That's
respect.
That's respect.
When the Boston Garden boo you, they've noticed you. You've made them take notice. Now you got to perform while you're here.
The Warriors lead the Celtics 3-2. The Celtics are looking to extend this final series here in Boston. Jared Greenberg is standing by with Celtics coach Ime Udoka.
All right, thanks, guys. Coach, obviously this is not the spot you want to be in, but you've been in this position and had success the last couple of series. What can you bottle up from having success in these games where you can make that to your advantage tonight?
No, confidence that we've done it before. Faced 3 elimination games so far in the playoffs, one on the road in Milwaukee, and then obviously another on the road against Miami. And so for our group, it's just more so looking at the little things, not looking at the situation overall, but the fact that we've done it before and had that experience should bode well for us going forward.
So much talk about turnovers dictate whether you guys win or lose, but what about the great ball movement you guys have had throughout the course of this year and in the postseason? How can you get that back tonight?
Yeah, understand how they're guarding us, understand the crowd that they're showing and the guys that they're really paying attention to. And so whether we're on ball, off ball, they're doing some things to show the crowd on certain guys. And for us, it's just making the simple play, not over penetrating, getting the ball moving around and sometimes being the bait. And other guys will be a recipient and rely on our guys, Jason, Jalen specifically, to get shots. And when we do that, we're really good. So more of that, less of playing in the crowd, and the more shots and the less transition breaks they get on, the better for us.
There's been a lot of noise, particularly in the Boston area, the last 48 hours about Jason Tatum. He obviously is a first-team All-NBA guy. He's becoming a real star in this league. Is there too much being asked of him right now, or what do you need from him in tonight's game?
No, it's what he's done all year. He's shouldered a lot of the load, especially with injuries and COVID situations throughout the season. And for him, it's more of what he's done his whole career. And so with us, we do not like to call it a one-man team that we're relying on one guy. And so he understands the role that he plays in it. But we rely on everybody. And like you said earlier, when the ball's moving around, everybody's being a recipient. It eases up the load for him and Jalen and kind of clears everything up for them. And so we'll ask him to do what he's done, which is bounce back and always played well when his back's against the wall. But we rely on the team as well, and that whole concept has worked well for us this year.
I know the guys in the set will appreciate the strong fit here, rocking the Louis Vuitton here. Coach Udoka ready for tonight's Game 6. Thanks so much. Good luck.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
That they do. Game 6 set for 9 Eastern on the court we're sitting on. The Warriors lead the Celtics 3-2, and our pregame coverage continues on NBA TV right after the break.